and welcome to this week's episode. You know, a question I get at least once a day is whether hormone replacement will make you lose weight. And that's a complex question without a yes or no answer, but I will tell you the ways that hormone replacement does make you lose weight, but it's not directly. So let's first of all talk about what hormones we're discussing here. Remember, when we go through menopause, we're talking about the three hormones that come from our ovaries: estrogen, specifically estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone. So once those have been obliterated, how do most of us feel? I can tell you how I felt. I wasn't sleeping well. I was waking up with hot flashes and night sweats. My energy was low because my testosterone was zero. I was losing muscle, getting fatter around the middle. So all of those things made me want to sit on the couch, eat ice cream, and drink wine. Now, I knew that a healthier approach would be to go to the gym, do my strength training, do my cardio, eat my 100 grams of protein. But it's really dismissive to tell someone who feels crummy, like really crummy, just to do those things because they don't feel well. So here's what happens. When we replace those hormones, we replace the estrogen, so you're not waking up at night with hot flashes. You've got your sexual wellness back again. The progesterone is helping you to sleep better as well. And the testosterone is allowing you to have more energy, not just sex drive, but also to build muscle and strength. Well, we feel better. And so people who feel better move more. People who feel better go to the gym more often. People who feel better can stick to that weight loss plan that they know is healthy. Because I know you all know what to do. Everybody listening here could probably write a book on how to optimize their weight, but doing it is more difficult. So why is doing it more difficult? Largely because we don't feel good. So when I feel terrible and I'm exhausted, I don't want to do any of those things. It's really hard to just do something that doesn't feel natural. Like gutting through something and dragging yourself to the gym and eating food that you don't like, that's never going to be a successful long-term plan. So that is why hormone replacement does cause us to lose weight. And we've seen in our practice, and I've seen in my own body, that replacing estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone does cause weight loss. Yes, it does. Not because of the hormones themselves, because remember, you've had these all your life. We're simply replacing what was there before, but because they make you feel better. You have more energy, you sleep better, you move more. That leads to weight loss. Now let's talk about sleep in particular, because there are numerous studies that show that simply sleeping better, however you achieve that, with or without hormones, causes us to lose weight. Because when we're not sleeping well, particularly when we've got lots of breaks in our sleep, or we're very anxious or worried at night, our cortisol level goes up. And we all know that cortisol is a stress hormone. So it's appropriate when we have high levels of stress hormones to want to eat sugar, because we need that rapid energy to run away from an emergency. Cortisol is that fight or flight hormone. So when we have elevated cortisol, probably you too, crave sugar. That's just physiologically normal, but it leads to weight gain. So when we don't sleep well, that cortisol elevation causes us to gain weight. Now, even absent of eating more, having high cortisol does cause weight gain. It pushes our body into a fat storing mode, again, because we think there's some kind of emergency going on. So it would be appropriate, if you were a caveman, to store fat if there's going to be a war, a famine, or emergency of that type. So storing fat would make a lot of sense. Biologically, back from our ancient days, that would make a lot of sense for high cortisol times to cause fat deposition, but we don't want that now. So sleeping well lowers cortisol, and hormone replacement allows us to sleep well. So you can see how through these multiple pathways, optimizing our hormones does lead to weight loss. So when patients ask me, do hormones cause weight loss, my answer is not directly, but through these other pathways that I've described. Now, we've talked about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and how those help with this weight optimization journey that we're all on. Also cortisol and sleeping well. And there are lots of things that we can do to help you to sleep well other than the hormones that I've mentioned. So that's the subject of another video, and I've actually done some videos about that topic because it's so important to sleep well. I'll put in another plug for my Oura Ring, which I don't know what I would do without this thing. It really helps me to monitor my sleep and to optimize it because, like I said, sleep is one of the most critical things that we need to master in order to manage our weight. Now let's move on to another really important set of hormones, which are those that come from our thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland sits right here in our neck. You can actually feel it. And it produces two critical hormones that literally control our metabolism. So as you can imagine, if our thyroid hormone production drops, our metabolism slows down. We burn fewer calories during the day. We have no energy, so we don't want to move. This vicious cycle starts recurring. It sounds a little bit like with those other hormones. So having optimal thyroid function is critical. So in the bucket of do hormones help you to lose weight? Yes, absolutely. Having optimal thyroid function helps us to lose weight. Now, we do not want high thyroid. That's a terrible disease with lots and lots of awful side effects. We just want our thyroid function to be at least in the middle. So in order to diagnose that properly, your doctor has to check the right labs. Now, I can tell you as a traditional doctor, back in the old days, we were not taught to check the right labs. We checked a very high level look at your thyroid, meaning not very detailed, checking a hormone called TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone. And frankly, that's all we did. And that can miss so many subtleties. So make sure your doctor is checking not only thyroid stimulating hormone, but also the free circulating levels of the two hormones that our thyroid makes. The two main ones anyway. There are others, but for this conversation, not so important. T3 and T4. Now, T3 and T4 are both critical for our metabolism, and we need them to be in optimal range. That means somewhere in the middle of that lab's very broad reference range. So just as an example, average free T3, meaning if you took 10,000 random people in the population and just measured the average, it's about 3.2. Now, in order for the lab to say something's wrong and flag it as low, it would have to be below 2.2. So if your doctor says your T3 is 2.3, which is not going to be read as abnormal, that is way too low. That means you're at about the 5th percentile out of 100 people. And we want to be at least at the 50th percentile, possibly even slightly above that. Now, not too high, but at least in the middle. I mean, we want to be at the very least average for the population. Now, T4, free T4 specifically, average is about 1.3. So if yours is 1.0, again, you're going to be at about the 5th percentile for the population. So making sure your thyroid is in optimal range, not what the lab considers as within their normal reference range, is critical. So make sure your doctor is checking those things, and then look at those numbers critically. Don't just look at what the lab says is okay. Another thing that we do for every patient that I think is very important is checking for the common anti-thyroid antibodies. So you may have heard of a condition called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's incredibly common. If we don't check for it, we would never know that patients might have this. It's an autoimmune condition. We produce an antibody that attacks a particular enzyme that's critical for thyroid function. So we actually check that in all of our patients because it's been found that somewhere between 25 and 50%, huge number of women develop this antibody over time. So if you do have this antibody, we keep an eye on it, and over time, it may cause your free thyroid levels to drop. So yes, if your thyroid is low, and by low, I mean just below average, that can absolutely affect your ability to gain weight more quickly. So yes, hormones can cause weight loss, but not directly. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone make us feel better, help us sleep better, encourage muscle development, help our bone health, help us to move more. And I don't mean just now, but I mean when we're 80, which is really important. So in that respect, they do help us to not only lose weight, but to maintain our healthy weight throughout our lives. And of course, thyroid, very important to optimize, and cortisol, super important to optimize. So that's my story about hormones and weight loss. If you'd like to come and see us, we're here in Houston, and we do have abilities to visit with us virtually, even if you live outside of Texas. Now, we're only licensed to practice in Texas, but we can offer coaching and education without practicing medicine to patients who live anywhere in the world. So there's a link below to see how you can reach us so that we can help you to have the best second half of life. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends, and I can't wait to see you next week.